We're here with Tabitha Plummer, an attorney at Plummer Law Group, also an NFL, NBA, and FIBA certified sport agent and just general brand marketer and leader in the space. Tabitha, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today about NIL.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Tabitha, I want to start first with the athlete experience and really going from being a freshman, starting out at their school, their university. What advice do you have for a freshman at their school that's wanting to get involved in the NIL space as they start, at their school?
Well, one of the first things that I'm going to do when I learn the athlete's name is I would go and take a look at their social media page. I'm going to go to their Instagram. I'm going to see what it looks like. How many followers do they have? If they're private, one of the first things they would need to do is make that page public page. You also want to see how many followers they have and if they're engaging with their audience. Is there something about the student athlete that kind of gives you some insight into something that they like outside of the sport? Is it just the sport or are there other things on there? So you want to get a sense of like who they are. The other thing that I think is really important, especially early on, is for that student athlete to secure their domain name. You'd be very surprised the number of people when the student athlete gets very popular that people go and they grab those names and they squat on them and then they're interested in selling them back to you for some astronomical price and you're like no. So as soon as possible, look up your name, see if it's available. If it is, purchase those domain names. So those are some of the initial things. um, Stressing to the student athlete that as you enter the space, you're a brand, you're the business, and you are the CEO of your business. And part of the expectation is that you will understand and know how your business operates, and that you will surround yourself with people who can assist you to get to whatever the goal is that you have set for yourself in this space.
As that student athlete progresses in their freshman year, their sophomore year, and they execute more and more brand deals or NIL deals in general,
Mhm.
there might come a time where they need external support and help in executing
Mhm.
deals. When that time comes for that student athlete, what qualities should they look for in an agent or agency? And then, secondly, what types of questions should they be asking somebody that they're looking to work for and support them as an agent?
Some of the things that they should look for is someone who is knowledgeable in the space, someone who operates in the space, um, someone who can take the time to get to know the student athlete so that they can present opportunities that the student athlete likes. Let's say if you like one type of soft drink, but the representative is going to push a different brand of a soft drink, it doesn't line up. So you really want it to be something that the student athlete really likes because that's the most authentic thing, which is I'm promoting something that I really like. So making sure that the representative takes the time to really get to know the student athlete, they're knowledgeable, they're trustworthy, and that whether they are brand new or they're seasoned, you really want someone who's going to work really hard for that student athlete in this particular space. Some of the things that are important and that should not be missed when you are meeting with a prospective representative is you want to take the time to get to know them. You want to get a sense and a feel because you can never overlook how you feel about someone. Is it someone that I vibe with? You want to understand and know the types of deals that they've done and what their affiliation or role was in that deal. So, for example, um, did they secure the deal? Did they sit on the sidelines and watch the deal happen at their company? Did they negotiate the deal? Those things are important so that you understand if a person says, "Oh, I did a deal," well, what did you do? What was your role? It's important to kind of drill down on that. And don't be shy in terms of asking questions. It's really important that you ask questions so that you understand and know who exactly you are about to do business with. Um, it's okay to ask for references. That's always a good thing. Who else have you worked with? Is it okay if I give them a call? I would think that most people are going to give references for people who will give a good reference. But social media is a good thing. You can always talk to people who you see that they are associated with. Can you give me a reference on this person? Um, in addition to that, some states, and this is really key, and you may need to talk to your compliance officer, student athlete. Um, some states require that the representatives are registered, and some states even go so far as to say that they must be bonded in that state. So you may want to find out if your state requires licensing and or bonding, and if your university requires that that representative is registered with your university. You don't want any trouble for yourself nor that representative. So you as the CEO have to take that step to just ask and then double check to just make sure that the person or the company, however the state requires registration, if required, that they are actually registered.
Pivoting to the contract side, legal side of
Mhm.
things here, Tabitha, you've worked as a marketing agent and representative across coaches and professional athletes, college athletes now in the NIL space, with folks in the entertainment space over the span of your
Yeah.
career, and you've seen hundreds and thousands of contracts in this realm across sport and entertainment. Of all the contracts you've seen across those different categories, what are the 3 to 5 most important terms that you think student athletes should be aware of as they're looking through contracts, whether it's from a collective or from a brand or from a local business that they're executing a deal with?
A few key things that these student athletes should focus on are as follows. What are the deliverables? What is the term of the deal? Some states are very clear that that term cannot extend beyond the student athlete's eligibility. You need to know whether or not you reside, or not you reside, but you attend a school in a state that mandates that the deal cannot extend beyond the date that your eligibility expires. What is the compensation in the deal? When will you receive the compensation in the deal? And I know I said a few, but is there a level of exclusivity? And what is that morals provision? Very, very important.
And another piece that student athletes, I think, should look for in a contract is pay structures and various pay structures that exist, not just between themselves and the brand, but also if they're working with a service provider and an agent to
Yes.
execute this deal. And as a student athlete works with a provider, there's various fees that are associated there, whether it's a percentage on the deal, a flat rate, a yearly recurring fee. Can you touch on different service provider or agent fees that an athlete might be exposed to while working with a service provider?
I have seen the entire gamut of compensation structures. And this goes back to having a good team surround you. It's really important for the student athlete to understand and know when you're entering into a deal with a representative that you have an exit. And that's in any deal. And so the key is to be able to enter into, yet terminate if you choose to terminate. Let's say you get into the relationship and it's not working as how you thought it was going to work. You should be able to have a very easy exit clause. The compensation should be tied to, and it must be tied to, a service that is rendered. So, although I've seen lots of things, it is important to tie it to a service, i.e., a deal, because that is the purpose. It is the marketing deal. It's if you're selling t-shirts or you're doing those sorts of deals, then perhaps you get a portion of that revenue. But it is tied to a service, nothing else. It is absolutely not tied to performance on the field. No brand deal can be that's strictly prohibited. No brand deal can be tied to any sort of performance on the field. No representative deal should have any ties to any sort of performance on the field, nor the obligation to then hire that representative when the student athlete transitions from student athlete to professional athlete. Those are really, really, really key. It cannot be contingent upon those services. And just as with the brand deal, the deal with the representative should end when the student athlete's eligibility also ends. But one key thing that a lot of student athletes tend to forget about, and they cannot, they have to pay their taxes. One key component and one key thing that we can't stress enough as representatives is to remind the student athlete that there is a tax liability when they do their brand deals.
Really diving into intellectual property or IP and describing at a high level what is IP and how does this apply to a student athlete in the NIL space?
So, what is intellectual property? It is that thing that you create that is an extension potentially of you. It's it's around us. It's everywhere we look. It's everything that we touch is the creation by someone of intellectual property. So for for example, I like to use a lot of examples. So for example, um, IP can be a logo that someone creates for you. So if you took my initials TDP, I hire a graphic designer and they create a fantastic logo using TDP that I can then use that logo after, of course, I pay for the logo and enter into an agreement whereby it is assigned to me and I own all rights, title, and interest into it. But that's another path that you don't necessarily need to go down today, but it's important that you own it and that you can use it how you choose to use it. Um, but I can then take that logo and affix it to my products and put it wherever you see that I am rendering services. And that is intellectual property. That is one form of intellectual property.
That's awesome. That's great.
Mhm.
And do you have any examples of how athletes in the NIL space, either in college, or even a professional athlete, has used
Mhm.
IP in a creative way with the brand?
Yeah. Like there is a football player, he's a pro. Actually, there are a couple. Um, a guy whose first name is Sauce. He then went and did a deal for, I believe it was Hot Sauce. There's a guy whose first name is Kool-Aid. I think that's his nickname. And he went and did a deal with Kool-Aid. I mean, cool and fun names, whether it's your legal name or your nickname. And you do some sort of brand affiliation based on your name or your nickname. I think that to me is such a natural, such a natural alliance, a partnership with a brand.
That's awesome. Well, that's
That's
all
all I want to say about that.
incredible advice there, Tabitha. And we've
Mhm.
talked through a number of different topics here today. The last question I was going to ask if there's any other ways a student athlete should protect themselves in the NIL era.
One of the ways that a student athlete can protect himself or herself is a system of checks and balances. So you may have a marketing rep, you might have a lawyer, you might have an accountant, and you have everyone kind of checking in with each other, making sure that the other is doing what they are supposed to do the way that they are supposed to do it. That is one way to make sure that the student athlete's interest is at the forefront of everything.
Awesome. Well,
Yes.
Tabitha, thank
Mhm.
you so much for shedding
Thank
some
you.
light and some wisdom on your experience working in sport and entertainment
Thank
realm
you.
across the legal side of things to the contract side
Mhm.
to the marketing and brand side. So, Tabitha Plummer, thank you so much for the time and appreciate
Thank
your
you.
insights.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.